You open your eyes to a corridor stitched in shadow and gold. Candles cough light against walls fattened with frescoes. A garden blooming in pigments ground from earth older than memory. Your bare feet whisper across marble ribs veined like old parchment, and the hush smells of beeswax, violets, and something sweeter, like thyme steeped in honey and left to rot. You don't remember your name. That's not new. Names fall from you like leaves, brittle and soundless. But tonight the absence aches sharper, as though syllables you once held like pearls now rattle in someone else's throat. Ahead, a door, carved in walnut ribs, its size under ivy scrolls. Wine-dark vines coiling around nymphs with stone lips parted for secrets they'll never speak. The handle chills your palm, gilded with stories etched by hands long dust. When you push, the hinges groan. Not in protest, but in pleasure, like a cello moaning low in its sleep. Inside, a chamber swells with whispers. Velvet curtains sag under gold wrought. A lute leans against a chair like a drunk saint. The hearth sulks in silence, its throat gagged with gray ash. On the table sprawls a folio fat with ink scabs and half-born poems, and scrawled across the margin in a fist trembling with devotion. To the one whose name slips from my tongue like wine, teach me silence, and I shall teach the stars to sing. You touch the words, and they twitch under your finger like veins. The ink tastes of salt and sleeplessness, and somewhere, perhaps inside your skull, perhaps behind the damask gloom, a voice murmurs. You were his muse, you were all their muses, and yet you cannot recall your own name. Sleep folds its velvet claws around your breath, but not yet. Ahead waits the first painter, the one who thought you sunlight draped in linen. His colors have not dried. The room tilts. Candles lurch like drunks in gilt sconces, and the air bruises your lungs with turpentine hymns. You stand in an atelier ribbed with beams blackened by smoke, its bones humming with drafts fattened on winter and ruin. Against the far wall, a canvas gapes like a wound, its skin glistening with oils that smell of rain strangled in rust. And there, bent like a bishop flogged by doubt, crouches the painter. His hands, veins knotted like roots, drag vermilion across your absence. His eyes flick up, fever bright, pupils gulping light like sins. You came, he whispers, though you haven't moved. Or perhaps I dreamed you from bone dust and need. His brush gnaws the canvas. Shadows convulse into thighs. Clavicles bloom like lilies fat with dusk. Lips shiver under a glaze of breath. But where your face should glow, the linen yawns blank. A hole, a howl. The painter snarls, whether at fate or himself you can't tell. His teeth catch the candlelight like coins dredged from a gutter. I will name you, he vows. His mouth floods with syllables sugared in madness. Isolde, Artemisia, Ligeia, Salome, each spat like wine too sour for his tongue. You taste none of them. Historians, those mildew saints, would one day ink footnotes about this canvas. How it vanished in a fire fattened on turpentine, how its ghost haunts galleries ribbed in gilt. They will never note the truth. The name he scrawled across the stretcher's spine was not yours, because you never told him, because you no longer remember. A wind feral with frost slinks through the beams. Candles gasp. The painter claws pigment like entrails from a jar. But you're already gone, slipping into corridors slick with silence, hunting a name that moans like an unfaithful prayer. Behind you, the atelier exhales soot and psalms. Ahead, a lute coughs a prelude in a salon swollen with heliotrope and hunger. You drift into a chamber swollen with laughter lacquered in lies. Curtains, fat with heliotrope size, ripple against stained glass windows ribbed in dusk. Chandeliers cough halos onto parquet floors slick as oaths spat by card sharps, and the air hums of silk skirts brushing sins under ormolu tables. Welcome to the salon, the kingdom of tongues sharpened like sabers. Here, poets and dandies sip absinthe sugared in scandal. They purr sonnets in velvet voices, clink crystal goblets fat with burgundy that tastes of rust and remorse. They do not see you at first, or perhaps they pretend. Men with wrists pale as parchment lean across gilt consoles, scribbling aphorisms that moan like saints in heat. Women draped in muslin fat with dusk feed on sighs and sugared almonds, their gloves clutching fans that whisper gossip gutted of mercy. Then someone whispers your name. No, not your name, but something close. Is it true? Breathes a throat lacquered in pearls. He painted her without a face. Eyes turn like bayonets hunting your absence. And in that hush you feel it again. The slip, the hollow where your name should kneel like a prayer flayed of syllables. A poet lunges first, kneeling before you, his breath a sacrament of smoke and gin. Let me write you, he pleads, cool poised like a dagger fattened on ink. Give me your name, and I'll make you immortal. You want to speak, but your tongue is a graveyard where vowels rot. So you smile instead, a crescent moon sugared in silence. And in that silence, the poet blooms, inking oaths that historians will one day paw like relics. To the muse who moves through marble, whose name is absence gilded in breath, you leave before the candles claw their last halos. Behind you, the salon convulses in rumor, while absinthe dreams lick at their ribs like green flames. Ahead sprawls a street slick with fog, where horse hooves clop like dirges through the marrow of midnight. Outside, the night yawns like a grave glossed in gaslight. Fog slithers down cobblestones slick as serpents drowning in milk, wrapping lampposts in lace spun from the lungs of ghosts. Carriages moan through the murk, their wheels coughing iron hymns into the marrow of silence. You walk, or drift, your skirts, woven from centuries, lick puddles that taste of soot and sermons. Behind shutters ribbed with rot, pianos whimper mazurkas for lovers boiled in sin. Dogs bark psalms at moonlight strangled in gauze, and once, just once, a voice flutters from an alley fat with mildew. Do you remember me? You turn. Nothing but fog bloated on whispers, and the hiss of gas flames chewing darkness to rags. But in that hiss, syllables stir, names rotting like coins under tongues. Clio, Calliope, Euterpe, Melpomene, all yours once, all gutted now, sucked marrow dry by time. Historians will snarl over tea brewed from ash. Was she real? A myth? A fever moaning in marble ribs? They'll never taste what you taste now, the musk of oblivion perfumed with heliotrope lies. You press on, toward a door ulcered in gold, where music oozes like honey fed to wolves. A pianist slumps over ivory slick with gin tears. His fingers twitch, carving requiems into air fattened with sighs. And when he lifts his head, his eyes split open like wounds sugared in rapture. You, he gasps, teeth flashing like rosaries gnawed to bone. I dreamed you before I learned to bleed music. Tell me your name, and I will burn a sonata on its altar. You want to give him syllables fat with psalms. But your mouth yawns hollow, and silence crawls out like a plague moth with velvet wings. Behind you, fog licks the windows like a rumor. Ahead, the night fattens with names you cannot chew. The room hums like a throat strangled in velvet. You step into a sanctum slick with silence, its walls ribbed and wainscot scarred by centuries of hymns. Candles gutter in sconces like monks flogged by doubt, their wax sobbing down iron spines. And there, hunched over a clavier fattened with dust, slumps the composer. His hair coils like smoke gnawed by wind, his coat flayed by moth jaws. Fingers twitch on ivory ribs, ringing dirges from keys yellowed like sinners' teeth. He does not see you at first, or perhaps he dreams you still, a fever unbottled from absinthe and need. When his eyes bloom, gray as a drowned sky, they devour you whole, then choke on awe. You came, he rasps, voice slick with ash and opium. Or perhaps I conjured you from cords fat with blood. He claws a quill from the gallows of a stand, ink yawning black as plague. Notes spasm across vellum, each curve hissing like a serpent strangled in psalms. But where your name should kneel, a halo scrawled in ink, there yawns a grave, blank, silent. The composer swallows his prayer, throat rattling like a chapel gutted by fire. Give it to me, he begs, lips sugared in sweat. One syllable, and I'll burn an empire to keep it breathing. You try, oh you try, raking the graveyard of your tongue for bones fattened on vowels. But nothing crawls out but silence. Silence soft as rot, holy as sin. Historians will peck at these scraps one day, glossed in footnotes fat with smugness. An unfinished nocturne, title unknown. They will never know that in his dying breath, he fed on the name you never spoke. Behind you, the room exhales fog from its lungs. Ahead, a gallery fattens on oil and envy, and whispers bloom like ulcers in the dusk. Corridors convulse in candle murk as you drift toward a gallery slick with sighs. Mirrors sprawl across the walls like frozen ponds, their bellies gagged with shadows. Gilt frames wheeze under drapes of dust, swallowing your reflection into gulfs sugared with lies. In each mirror's throat, faces leer, painted mouths fat with hush, eyes glossed in varnish slick as rain. Women ribbed in brocade, men swollen with satin and lust. But one frame slits you open, a canvas yawning like a wound glazed in gold. It is you, or was, a body lacquered in ochre and light, thighs blooming from shadow like lilies drowned in honey. But where the face should purr, there swells a blur, gray as sermons curdled in smoke. A howl gagged in oil. The painter squats nearby, spine crooked as a harp flogged by famine. His hands writhe through pigment fattened on bile, clawing for features that moan beyond memory. His teeth snarl verses to saints with tongues licked raw. Stay, he begs, or I'll drown in this hush fattened on ghosts. His brush thrashes. Vermilion spits across linen like blood flayed from psalms. But your name, the marrow he needs, slips through your gums like gin sluiced down a throat sick with vows. Historians will sneer one day, a ruined masterpiece, subject unknown. They will never taste what you taste now, the tang of oil sluicing your absence across a face strangled in dusk. The painter howls. Mirrors choke on laughter. and you slip, soft as rot, into a stairwell ulcered in gloom, where secrets writhe like worms drunk on ink. The ballroom fattens on fog and perfume. Chandeliers drip amber halos like honey bleeding from wounds. Gowns prowl the parquet, skirts licking shadows into ribbons, gloves flashing like fangs lacquered in pearls. Music convulses from a string quartet strangled in velvet dusk, each note slick as a dagger kissed in gin. You glide through this jungle stitched from lace and venom. Men stalk in tails ribbed with satin, mouths sugared in lies as they bow like wolves muzzled in silk. Women coil gossip through lorgnettes fat with malice, tongues lapping scandal from silver spoons still wet with creme. And then he appears, the dancer with wrists that hum psalms. His boots hiss across parquet ribs, his spine swaying like a serpent strangled in sonatas. One waltz, he murmurs, voice sugared in arsenic. Tell me your name, and I'll teach your bones to sing. You place your palm in his, and the floor tilts. Shadows convulse like entrails under gaslight as he reels you into a storm sugared with Strauss. Silk gnaws your thighs, beads whip your throat. His breath claws your ear. Your name, whisper it. Feed me the syllables before silence strangles us both. You try. Oh, you rake vowels from the ash in your gums. But they slip, soft as gin sluiced on marble lips. And his face curdles in fury lacquered in lust. Historians will dribble smug ink. Anonymous muse inspires unnamed waltz, composed in a fever of gin. They'll never taste the way your spine sang while silence chewed your tongue to ribbons. When the waltz dies, the wolves applaud with claws lacquered in lace. You bleed from your breath alone. Dawn slithers through shutters like a rumor gagged in silk. You sprawl on a chaise gutted by moths, throat glazed in sighs, while the world simmers in a hush fattened on heliotrope and rot. On the table, littered with cork-limbed quills, sprawl letters bloated in ink, their veins writhing with vows. You slit one open. Perfume vomits from the fold. Opium and sweat, psalms shriveled in rosewater. The script moans in italics fevered with gin. You are the marrow in my nocturne, the silk I tear my teeth on. Give me your name, and I'll slit heaven to lace. Another letter licks your palm and whispers. Muse, which, void with hips, why do you chew my sleep into ghosts? Historians, those mildew clerics, will one day print these scraps in tomes ribbed with smugness, glossed in footnotes sugared with lies. Anonymous mistress of genius, identity unknown. They'll never taste the ash yawning in your throat now, the hush gorged on hymns where vowels once knelt. You rise. Curtains retch dawn in damask streaks as you slither toward a desk fat with ink scabs and sighs. You seize a quill, throttle it to marrow, and carve this gospel into the skin of silence. I am hunger lacquered in lace. I am psalms strangled in sin. I am nameless, and thus infinite. The ink sobs dry. Behind you, dawn flays the chandeliers. Ahead waits a train with lungs wheezing soot psalms across a more ulcered in mist. The station yawns like a jaw lacquered in soot. Iron ribs arch above you, dripping steam like entrails slick with fog. Gas lamps cough halos into the black throat of the platform as porters scuttle with trunks belching damask skirts and whispers. Somewhere, a violin sobs inside a carriage, strangled in velvet and gin. You step aboard. The train groans, an iron beast drunk on coal and psalms. Its breath scalds your cheeks. Its pulse throbs through brass veins as wheels gnash steel into sparks. Curtains hemorrhage burgundy, velvet swallowing windows like lungs fattened on dusk. Inside, a salon blooms like rot under rouge. Aristocrats lounge in lace fat with lies, their mouths sugared in absinthe. A bishop wheezes into his cuff, fingers fumbling rosaries ribbed in grime. Beside him, a courtesan gnaws figs with teeth glazed in vermilion, her eyes purring blasphemy through lashes lacquered in soot. They do not know your name. They never will. But their gaze gnaws your skin like wolves drunk on Strauss. One murmurs, breath slick with gin, "Are you the woman who dines on dreams?" Another coughs, "Say your name, and I'll drown the Alps in lilies." You smile, a hush slick as arsenic drips across the carriage. Outside, moors blur into ink, their spines throttled by frost. The train devours midnight in gulps fattened on smoke. Historians will pant footnotes glazed in smugness. Muse rumored aboard Orient Express. No record of identity. They'll never taste the hush gagging your tongue, nor the fever gnawing vowels from your ribs. Ahead, a city crouches like a wolf gagged in fog, its spires vomiting hymns into skies ribbed with soot. The city blooms in gaslight like a sin slick with satin. Its lungs wheeze opium fog through alleys gagged in grime. Its veins gurgle with hansoms drunk on dusk. You slip down boulevards ribbed in arcades fat with glass, chandeliers slobbering gold halos on marble throats. Everywhere, faces lacquered in hunger. Poets sprawled in cafes, quills gnawing scraps of vellum like wolves flaying psalms. Painters slumped in attics ulcered in damp, brushes throttling pigments fattened on rust. Composers chewing silence till it sobs music slick as rot. And all their eyes, feral, fevered, snarl the same gospel. Tell us your name, but you have none. Only this hush coiled in your marrow like a serpent fattened on vowels. You taste it now, the musk of gin perfumed with lies, the ash of syllables drowned in ink. Historians, those mildew scribes, will one day ink sermons on this city. Cradle of decadence, womb of genius. They'll never choke on the stench curling from its ribs tonight. The scent of muses burning like camphor in ateliers that cough prayers to hunger and opium moons. You press on, boots bleeding sparks across cobbles slick with spit. Ahead, a doorway yawns, a mouth gilt in dust, coughing hymns of paint and fever. Behind it waits the sculptor, whose hands will flay marble till it moans your absence. You knock, and the night gnaws its own tongue. The door exhales mildew and moonlight as it yawns. Inside, the atelier gapes like a cathedral gutted of God. Blocks of marble crouch like blind giants, their bellies veined in blue dusk. Dust fattens the air until it chews your breath into chalk. And there, gnarled like a root strangled in frost, kneels the sculptor. His ribs snarl through a shirt ulcered by sweat, his hands slick with lime that flays his nails to bone. His chisel snarls hymns as it gnaws the marble, each stroke a psalm gagged in stone. He does not glance until silence throttles the room. Then his eyes split wide, black as obsidian drowned in fever. You came, he rasps, spittle sugared in chalk. Or perhaps I carved you first, and the stone spat you out. You step closer. A figure writhes under his fists. A woman bleeding from marble dusk, hips slick with powdered hymns, thighs blooming like lilies scalded in frost. But her face, Oh, her face yawns blank. A howl lacquered in limestone. Your name, he begs, teeth grinding syllables to dust. Carve it into me, and I'll carve it into her spine. You taste the vowels trembling on your gums, but they slip soft as milk sluiced on sin. And his jaw splits in a grin fat with rot. Historians will gloss this in ink curdled with smugness. Anonymous statue. Atelier burned in 1893. They'll never taste the chalk crawling on your tongue, nor hear the psalm gagged in your marrow as you slither toward the door slick with dusk. Behind you, the sculptor howls, his chisel carving prayers to an absence that moans like a veiled saint. Ahead, a labyrinth fattens on stairs throttled in mirrors. You wander through a stairwell lacquered in soot, its ribs strangled in guilt ulcered with mildew. Mirrors convulse along the walls like frozen throats, coughing back your shadow in shards sugared with dusk. In each a mouth yawns, yours but mute, a howl varnished in silence. Doors blister on either side, coughing whispers slick with lust. Ateliers belching turpentine psalms, salons dripping Strauss from their lungs. Faces leer from gilt frames, women ribbed in brocade, men lacquered in lace, their eyes gulping you whole like wolves gagged in rouge. And through it all, a murmur slick as opium. Name, name, name. Historians will ink this in footnotes swollen with smugness. Labyrinth of ateliers. No record of the muse's passage. They'll never taste the hush fattening your breath, nor feel the syllables rotting under your tongue like lilies strangled in soot. Ahead, a door coughs vermilion light, pulsing like a heart gutted of psalms. Behind it, a salon convulses in laughter lacquered in gin. You slip through, and the century snaps its spine. The door vomits vermilion light, and you stagger into a salon ribbed in rouge. Curtains strangled in damask choke the windows. Chandeliers cough halos fat with gold, dripping like honey on parquet floors scalded by Strauss. Bodies bloom in velvet dusk. Women lacquered in silk gowns that hiss like serpents. Men glazed in satin tails. Mouths sugared with gin and lies. Laughter convulses from their throats like psalms throttled in arsenic. Cigarette smoke coils through the air, perfumed with heliotrope and rot. As gnash you whole, murmurs ripple. There, the one who fed poets to fever. Name her, she's famine gilded in lace. They lunge in whispers lacquered in lust. A poet crawls to your feet, quills slobbering ink like bile. Give me a syllable, just one, and I'll drown Rome in sonnets. You smile, a crescent sugared in silence. And in that hush, their hunger fattens until the chandeliers gasp. Someone shoves a goblet into your fist, burgundy yawning black as plague. Tastes like iron and broken vows. Historians, those mildew clerics, will gloss this night as decadence lacquered in Strauss. They'll never taste the rot simmering in the air, nor feel your silence slit its wrists under the chandeliers. Behind you, curtains twitch like throats gagged on psalms. Ahead, a stair yawns toward a room swollen with nocturnes and opium breath. You climb. Steps cough dust as your skirts lick their spines, and the hush fattens with a hymn carved from ivory ribs. At the landing, a door sighs open like a lung scalded by gin. Inside, a chamber ulcered in candlelight, its air bruised by smoke fat with opium and prayer. The composer crouches at a clavier gutted of grace. His hands convulse across keys yellowed like sinners' teeth, bleeding dirges thick with dusk. Sweat chews his spine, his lips foaming vows lacquered in ash. When his eyes claw you, the room convulses. Your name, he hisses, voice a blade gnawed to bone. Give it, and I'll carve psalms that throttle heaven to its knees. You step closer. Wax sobs down the candles, scarring the dark with wounds fattened on gold. He slams chords like coffins, screaming symphonies into the night's black lungs. And you, mute, marrow howling, bleed syllables onto your tongue. But silence devours them raw. Historians will peck at these carcasses one day. Nocturne in D minor, title lost. They'll never taste the vowels throttled in your throat, nor hear the gospel drowning in that clavier's maw. The composer folds, ribs splitting psalms as the candles claw their last breath. Behind you, the city retches gaslight into streets ulcered in fog. Ahead, a mirror waits with jaws lacquered in gold, eager to chew your shadow to ribbons. The room yawns like a gutted cathedral, and at its throat hangs a mirror slick with centuries of sighs. Its frame convulses in guilt ulcered by time, serpents coiling through ivy scrolls gnawed by rot. Candles spit halos across its ribs, and in its glass, or what should be glass, boils nothing but a hush fattened on dusk. You step closer. Shadows moan like psalms throttled under silk as your breath crawls across its frozen skin. And then there you are, or what remains. A spine lacquered in lace, lips sugared with hush, eyes bloated with centuries. But your name? Still a corpse rotting in your gums. Historians will pant smug ink. Anonymous muse glimpsed in Atelier Memoirs, 1884. They'll never choke on this. The mirrors moan slick as opium when it whispers syllables you can't chew. Your fingers rake the gilt ribs, clawing for vowels drowned in gold. Nothing comes, only the mirror splitting into jaws that cough your shadow into the corridor. Behind you, the composer's dirges still convulse in the dark, each chord a coffin throttled in ash. Ahead, a stair spews fog like entrails, leading to streets gagged in scandal. Outside, the night vomits hymns through alley throats slick with soot. Gas lamps weave halos over cobbles ribbed in spit, while fog licks their spines like opium-fed serpents. Carriages groan past, belching psalms of steel and gin. The city chews on Strauss tonight, ballrooms gagged with waltzes that drip arsenic through gilded ribs. Scandals bloom like ulcers in salons lacquered with vermilion. Painters drown their canvases in vermilion hymns. Poets choke their veins on opium psalms. Sculptors flay marble to bone, hunting the face you never gave. And you drift through it all, a hush lacquered in silk, a shadow perfumed with heliotrope rot. Murmurs stalk your ankles like wolves drunk on gin. There, the one who slits Strauss from her hips. Name her and I'll feed you Rome. You smile, crescent, cruel, sugared in sin. Behind you, whispers convulse into riots gagged in rouge. Ahead, a gallery yawns with throats gorged on portraits. But in each the face smolders blank, a gospel gagged in varnish. Historians will slurp this city in ink curdled with smugness. Cradle of genius, hive of rot. They'll never taste the hush throttling your breath as you stagger into the gallery's gilt throat. Inside, the century sharpens its teeth. The gallery fattens on silence. Thick, glistening, perfumed with dust and old varnish that hisses under gaslight. Walls convulse with gilt coffins swallowing canvases, each frame snarling like a psalm throttled in gold. You wander through this orchard of ghosts, skirts lapping parquet, ribs slick with frost. Faces leer from the gloom, duchesses lacquered in pearls, dandies sugared in satin. But every eye whimpers the same gospel, hunger varnished in oil. And then you freeze. A canvas splits your breath. A body writhes across linen like dusk scalded in honey, hips molten under brushstrokes drunk on lust. Your hips, your ribs, but your face? Still a howl gutted of syllables. A blur slick as fog strangling a moon. The painter crouches nearby, wrists ulcered with vermilion, lips bleeding verses to saints that choke on sin. Stay, he rasps, voice fat with gin. Name, give me your marrow in vowels, and I'll graft your face to heaven. You open your mouth. Silence staggers out like a moth scalded in light. And the painter howls, tearing fists of color from jars like entrails gushing from psalms. Historians will gnaw these bones in smug italics. Unfinished portrait. Subject unknown. They'll never taste the varnish strangling your shadow tonight. Behind you, frames cough dust like prayers burned in haste. Ahead yawns a stair slick with whispers and ink, leading to a diary ulcered in sin. A chamber slick with mildew gapes at the stair's throat. Curtains gag on moths. Gas lamps weep halos across a desk bloated with vellum ribs. Ink jars moan with mouths lacquered in rust. And at the desk, a man writhes in scripture. His quill flogs paper like a whip slicing psalms from bone. Words convulse across the page, black veins fattening with lust. She walked through gaslight like famine in lace. Her name was, but the line gapes blank. A wound bleeding hush. You hover behind him, skirts licking parquet sores, breath perfumed with dusk. He does not turn, though his spine convulses under the hiss of your silence. Say it, he begs, teeth gnashing vowels from air. One syllable, and I'll baptize the century in it. You lean close, your shadow throttles his page. Your lips open and bleed only quiet. Historians will slurp these lines in smug italics. Anonymous muse, author's obsession. They'll never gag on the hush gagging your gums tonight. The quill snaps. Ink vomits across vellum like entrails from a psalm. Behind you, the room convulses in gaslight coughs. Ahead yawns a corridor ribbed in scarlet, where scandal fattens on Strauss, and you slip into it like a rumor sharpening its teeth. The corridor vomits you into a ballroom foaming with Strauss. Chandeliers bleed halos fat with gold, their light slicking parquet ribs like milk sluiced on sin. Curtains ulcer in vermilion folds, coughing incense and heliotrope sighs. Bodies swarm like saints flayed in satin. Gowns hiss psalms across marble veins, their hems drunk on dusk. Men prowl in tails lacquered with lust, their eyes gnashing hymns from your hips. Fans whip scandals like serpents tonguing gin. At the hall's throat squats an orchestra throttled in velvet, its strings foaming hymns through smoke fattened on opium. Notes convulse like worms drowned in wine. The waltz swells, claws your ribs, and you, breath gagged in hush, are dragged into its throat. Your name, someone hisses, lips sugared in absinthe. Give me the syllables, and I'll drown Vienna in lilies. You smile, a crescent lacquered in dusk, and spin. Marble claws your heels. Strauss slits its belly across your pulse. But no sound crawls from your throat, only silence fattened on centuries. Historians, mildew saints, will dribble smug ink, grand soiree, muse unnamed. They'll never choke on the hymn chewing your spine tonight. Behind you, gas lamps vomit halos across mirrors ulcered in dusk. Ahead, a stare throttled in black yawns like a coffin begging for bone. The stare gapes like a wound stitched in soot. You claw upward, skirts licking dust, ribs slick as rot. Gaslight coughs in sockets, strangling shadows into knots of gold. At the landing, a clock convulses on the wall, its face ulcered in cracks. Hands stutter, chewing hours into gristle. You touch its glass and time vomits teeth. Centuries slide their gums down your spine. Salons rotting in smoke, poets boiling ink into psalms, painters flaying marble till it moans your hush. Your lungs gag on epochs. Perfume curdles to soot. Strauss dissolves into dirges strangled in fog. And you, smeared in lace fattened with rot, crawl toward a door coughing ink from its ribs. Behind it, pages spasm like ghosts chewed by memory. Historians will ink this in smug italics. The nameless epic. Muse evaporates from record. They'll never feel centuries gnaw your marrow raw, nor hear the clock's howling vowels strangled in their own gums. You push the door. Inside, ink simmers in bowls like bile boiled from psalms. A pen glares from the desk, teeth slick with hunger, and it whispers, right, before silence chews your bones hollow. The door wheezes shut, and the hush fattens till it gnaws your ribs raw. A desk squats at the room's throat, its wood ulcered by scars carved from centuries of quills gone rabid. On its spine sprawls a folio, pages bloated with bile-black ink, their veins pulsing as though drunk on fever. You stagger closer. Candles cough halos that spit shadows into the vellum's throat. Lines convulse across the parchment, not written but groan. Letters clawing from pulp like roots strangled in blood. Words hunch into psalms chewed by wolves. The muse who feeds on silence. The hush that gags empires. The name. A blank yawns where your syllables should kneel. A wound fattened on hush. The pen leers nearby, its nib slick with ink slicker than midnight. You seize it, knuckles splitting hymns, and ram its fong into the vellum's maw. Ink vomits like entrails from a psalm, flooding the page with spasms of scripture. I am famine dressed in lace. I am dusk bottled in bone. My name is... But your hand stalls. A claw of hush throttles your wrist till the vowels gag and rot. You drop the quill, breath bleeding through your teeth like prayer gutted by plague. Historians will slurp these entrails in smug italics. Fragmentary confession. Identity obliterated. They'll never taste the ink ulcering your pulse tonight. Behind you, the clock retches centuries into soot. Ahead, a mirror bulges from the wall like a lung drowning in gold. And in its throat, you glimpse a shadow mouthing syllables slick with blood. The mirror slits open, coughing gold and dusk. Its belly yawns a storm of faces stitched from centuries. Poets with ribs chewed hollow by ink, painters fattened on turpentine hymns, composers throttled by sonatas. And behind them, your own bones lacquered in lace, your shadow gagged in hush. But then there it is, a name, scrawled across the mirror's throat in vermilion, vowels foaming like teeth ripped from psalms. Not yours, but close enough to gnaw your marrow with longing. You stagger forward, lips blistering on syllables slick as blood. Lysandra, the word spasms into the glass like a serpent strangling in silk. It does not fit your gums, yet it hisses sweet as arsenic. For a breath, a single brittle breath, you wear it like a halo lacquered in dusk. Historians will dribble smug ink. Lysandra, the phantom muse, possibly fictive. They'll never gag on this truth, that tonight, under chandeliers scalded in Strauss, you were christened in scarlet lies. The mirror splits its ribs and vomits your reflection into corridors bloated with waltzes. Behind you, ink convulses on vellum like entrails curling in smoke. Ahead, a masquerade fattens on Strauss and opium breath, where wolves lick sins from masks lacquered in gold. And your hush crawls behind the mask like a fever fattened on psalms. The hall convulses in silk and smoke. Chandeliers vomit gold across parquet ribs slick as sin, their halos chewing shadows into lace. Music swells, a Strauss waltz foaming like milk soured on arsenic. Masks leer from every throat, wolves lacquered in pearls, saints scalded in rouge. You drift through this fever, a shadow perfumed in heliotrope rot. Eyes gnash your silhouette like wolves drunk on gin. Whispers bloom in damask folds. Lysandra, the muse who bleeds Strauss. Name her, and I'll drown Paris in lilies. A masked man lunges from dusk, his gloves ulcered in jewels, his breath sugared with venom. Dance, he hisses, voice throttled in lust. Give me your name, and I'll burn the century to bone. You let him spin you through vermilion gasps. Silk claws your hips, chandeliers slit their bellies into your pulse. But silence still fattens under your tongue, bloated like a corpse scalded in hymns. Historians will gloss this night in smug italics. A gala at its twilight peak. The phantom muse in velvet dusk. They'll never choke on the hush strangling your vowels, nor taste the Strauss boiling your marrow raw. Behind you, masks froth into hymns lacquered with lust. Ahead, a balcony yawns into fog gagged in gold, where betrayal fattens on smoke. The balcony gapes like a lung throttled in frost. Fog slithers its gums across marble ribs, licking balustrades ulcered in gold. Below, the city gnaws its own pulse, spires vomiting gaslight into night's black maw. You lean into the hush. Lace convulses on your wrists. Pearls choke your throat like psalms flayed to bone. And then, footsteps ulcer the dusk. A mask splits the shadows, coughing jewels fattened on envy. Lysandra. He breathes, voice slick with venom and gin. The poets choke on your ghost. The painters flay marble till it moans your hush. Give me the syllables, and I'll strangle their hymns. You turn. Your lips blister vowels, but silence crawls out. Slow, slick, holy as sin. His smile curdles into a snarl lacquered in gold. Jewels spit from his gloves as fingers close on your throat like psalms throttled in prayer. Historians, mildew saints, will slurp this in smug italics. An affair rumored. A muse vanished under fog. They'll never taste the gaslight gagging your lungs, nor hear the Strauss drowning in your bones as you stagger toward the door fattened on dusk. Behind you, laughter convulses through masks foaming in vermilion rot. Ahead yawns a stair coughing black hymns into a street ulcered by wolves and soot. The ballroom swells again, frothing Strauss into chandeliers that cough gold onto parquet ribs slick with sin. Masks leer through fog sugared in gin, laughter convulsing in throats lacquered with pearls and venom. But something stinks in the waltz tonight, a rot fattened under silk. The violins gag on their own hymns, their notes hissing like serpents throttled in milk. And then you taste it. Iron simmering under Strauss, hot as psalms boiled to marrow. You spin. Skirts lash air fat with perfume and lust. But your partner's gloves slit the hush like knives, jeweled fangs sinking into your wrists. A gasp convulses from chandeliers, shattering into halos. Your name, he snarls, voice slick as rot. Say it, or I'll carve it into your pulse. You try. You tear vowels from ash, syllables gagged in bone. But silence fattens in your throat like opium rotting in gilt jars. His smile splits into vermilion laughter, and the waltz strangles its own throat. Historians will smear smug ink across vellum. Masquerade tragedy, details erased by scandal. They'll never taste the Strauss drowning in blood under chandeliers foaming in dusk. Behind you, masks choke on shrieks lacquered in velvet. Ahead, a stare vomits fog into a night convulsing in psalms. You stagger into a city howling in gaslight. Fog claws its ribs across boulevards ulcered in soot, coughing psalms of hoofbeats through marble throats. The air gnaws hymns laced with blood and Strauss, choking you on vows gutted in vermilion dusk. Behind, the ballroom convulses into gossip lacquered in gold. Poets will flay this night into odes sugared with arsenic. Painters will throttle their brushes till they vomit vermilion hymns across canvas ribs. And historians, those mildew saints, will hunch over scraps fattened on lies. The muse vanished. Identity unknown. You drift through alleys gagged in frost. Windows leer, coughing lamp halos into fog ulcered in smoke. Voices moan in shadows. Say it. Spit the syllables. Name, name, name. But your tongue, gagged in hush, rots vowels to bone. You claw them from your marrow till your pulse coughs ink, but nothing crawls out, only silence slick as milk fed to serpents. Ahead, a chapel gapes like a lung flayed by psalms, its ribs strangled in ivy veins fat with frost. Inside, a coffin squats in candlelight, its wood vomiting hymns that smell of heliotrope and rot, and you step in, shadow slick as dusk, while the city gags on elegies outside. The chapel throbs with candlelight that crawls like fever across walls ulcered in soot. Shadows kneel under arches gagged in ivy ribs, and psalms clot in the air, curdled by incense fat with rot. At the altar squats a coffin slick as oil, its belly lacquered in gold and grief. Candles sob down its spine, weeping wax psalms into cracks. You stagger toward it, skirts licking stone ribs scalded in frost, breath perfumed with centuries of silence. Your hands claw the lid. It moans open like a throat throttled in dusk. Inside, nothing but hush swollen to marrow. But then, a whisper slides from its black gums, slick as milk sluicing over sin. Name. You jerk back. Your lungs gag hymns boiled in ash. The word convulses again, a vowel dragging entrails of centuries. Name me, or drown in your own marrow. Historians, mildew scribes drunk on smugness, will paw this ruin, gloss it in italics fat with lies. Empty coffin, ritual unclear. They'll never gag on this hush crawling down your ribs like a serpent lacquered in frost. Behind you, candles claw the dark into wounds fattened on gold. Ahead, a stare vomits into a crypt riddled with jaws chewing psalms in vermilion rot. And you, bones blistered in dusk, slip into its throat. The crypt moans like a lung strangled in soot. Columns squat like bones chewed hollow by centuries, their veins slick with ivy rot. Pools of wax fatten the floor, choking on halos ulcered in gold. You drift through this fever, lace flayed to shadows, lips bloated with hush, while psalms crawl down from vault ribs like worms slick with hymns. And then you see it, a clock nailed to the wall like a saint gutted for sin. Its face split into cracks vomiting dust, its hands clawing in spasms drunk on opium. Time convulses, chewing its own spine, spitting centuries into your breath. Your pulse foams in black gulps. Shadows bloom like ulcers in your marrow. You taste ages vomiting in your gums. Ballrooms rotting in Strauss, poets flaying ink into entrails, mirrors coughing names lacquered in blood. You scream, or maybe silence screams you, ripping syllables fat with psalms from your ribs. But when the echo staggers back, it croaks a name slick with vermilion rot. Lysandra, not yours, never yours, but close enough to scald your bones. Historians will hoard these relics in smug gloss. A forgotten rite, an invented muse. They'll never feel time splitting its own gums under your skin tonight. Behind you, the coffin coughs dust like entrails boiling in hymns. Ahead, a door belches frost into a corridor ulcered with dawn, and you crawl toward it, spine lacquered in dusk, vowels rotting in your mouth like lilies drowned in milk. The door vomits you into a corridor gagged in frost. Dawn gnaws the horizon outside stained glass ribs, bleeding pale light like milk curdled on steel. Gas lamps cough their last halos, strangled by a sky ulcered in pewter and ash. You stagger through this birth wound of day, skirts slick with dust, lips gagged on vowels chewed to gristle. Behind you, the crypt wheezes hymns boiled in vermilion dusk. Ahead, a cloister writhes in shadows fattened on psalms. Outside, the city chokes on silence. Boulevards ulcer under frost, their veins clogged with hoofbeats coughing elegies into fog. Windows gape like skull sockets stuffed with incense smoke. And from the chimneys, ash geysers spurt black hymns into a sky howling for its own skin. You pause. Dawn claws your face in shards of pewter light, flaying centuries from your marrow like lace torched to soot. The hush in your ribs splits open, and from its gums spills a syllable, slick as opium and blood. Lysandra, not yours, never yours. Yet the name coils around your bones like ivy strangling saints. Historians will dribble smug ink into their tomes. Dawn at the cloister gate, symbol of rebirth. They'll never gag on this fever lacquered in frost. Behind you, the coffin gorges on psalms gutted to marrow. Ahead, bells convulse in towers ulcered with rust, vomiting hymns that taste of knives and milk, and you crawl toward their howl like a prayer drunk on arsenic. The cloister gapes into a hall ribbed in ribs of bone-white stone, its floor ulcered by candle wax scalded in psalms. Shadows fester like wounds across its flanks, and in the hush footsteps, silk whispers, masks convulsing in the dusk. They bloom from pillars like orchids strangled in soot, ghosts lacquered in velvet dusk, masks scabbed with vermilion rot. Chandeliers cough halos of dead gold across their throats as they lurch into a waltz gagged in Strauss. One glides toward you, jaw lacquered in guilt, eyes ulcered in opium fog. Lysandra. He croons, voice fat with venom. The century chewed itself raw on your hush. Give me the syllables, and I'll stitch your bones to the spine of time. You smile, a crescent sugared in frost, and let him reel you into a dance throttled in dusk. Shadows whip your skirts into psalms. Strauss gnaws its own spine from the walls. Masks leer, coughing him slick with envy. But then, he tilts your face to a mirror ribbed in soot. And the glass vomits not your reflection but 1,000 faces convulsing in vermilion rot, each howling your hush into a sky gagged in bone. Historians will slurp this night in smug italics. Visionary episode. Allegorical, perhaps delusional. They'll never taste the frost ulcering your pulse, nor feel eternity strangling your ribs with silk claws tonight. Behind you, dawn foams like milk gagged on knives. Ahead yawns a stair vomiting gold into a chamber fattened on mirrors and psalms. And you descend, barefoot now, marrow dripping ink across the stone ribs of time. The stair gulps you down its stone ribs like marrow sucked from saints. At its belly yawns a hall lacquered in guilt ulcered by time. Chandeliers coughing halos slick as fever across floors scalded in dust. And then you see them, mirrors, 1,000, maybe more, convulsing along the walls like frozen throats gagged in frost, each ribbed in gold fattened with rot, each coughing your shadow into glass slick with psalms. You crawl toward the first. Its skin spits back a body blistered in lace, ribs gnawed by dusk, lips fat with hush. Behind its gums bloom faces shriveled in oil, eyes strangled in varnish. They whisper like teeth rattling in milk. Say it, spit the syllables. Name, name, name. You claw the glass. Blood slicks its spine, veins hissing through cracks. Mirrors convulse under your fists, spewing centuries like bile scalded in hymns. Salons foaming Strauss, ateliers vomiting vermilion psalms, poets snapping quills under moons drunk on absinthe rot. Historians will dribble smug gloss across vellum, a delirium of glass. Muse unmoored. They'll never choke on the hush ulcering your breath tonight. Behind you, masks wilt into smoke. Ahead, a door bulges in guilt like a lung throttled in gold. Coughing whispers fattened on dusk. Lysandra, you ram the door. It convulses like a throat scalded in milk, vomiting you into a chamber pulsing with candle gore. Walls ulcer with glass. Mirrors riddled with cracks spewing vermilion hymns down gilt ribs. Each pane snarls your silhouette, fractured into psalms strangled in bone. And then the first split. A shard vomits a face that isn't yours. Cheekbones lacquered in frost, lips dripping vowels like entrails of dusk. Another shard spasms with eyes ulcered in centuries. Iris gnawed hollow by psalms. The mirrors hiss. Cracks claw their bellies, coughing blood across marble ribs. Names convulse from their throats like worms slick with ink. Lysandra, Cleo, no one, nothing. You scream or silence screams you. Your marrow liquefies into hush as mirrors writhe like serpents flayed in psalms. Blood slicks the glass in tongues fat with hymns, dripping your absence across the floor like lace scalded to soot. Historians, mildew saints bloated on smugness, will gloss this in curdled ink. Collapse of psyche, final erasure. They'll never feel the glass slit its gums into your pulse, nor hear eternity chewing your ribs raw. Behind you, dawn curdles into dusk's black milk. Ahead, no door, no stair. Only mirrors cracking like saints choking on their own marrow. And at the center, you, or the echo of you, or nothing at all. The hall convulses like a lung flayed open for psalms. Mirrors splinter, coughing shards like knives sugared in dusk. Candles belch halos of gold that scald the marble ribs, and from the cracks in the glass gushes ink slick as midnight, foaming with vowels strangled in hymns. You stagger barefoot through rivers of black milk, skirts ulcered in vermilion rot, breath blistering vowels that gnaw your gums raw. Lysandra, Cleo no one, each syllable gags, flays its own spine, and vomits silence across the floor. Then the air rips, splits like parchment scalded in hellfire. Time crawls out, a carcass of centuries chewed hollow, its gums dripping hours like teeth rotting in opium. It leans close, a grin lacquered in frost, and hisses in a voice fat with dust. You are famine bottled in bone. You are dusk swollen with hush. You are. But the rest drowns in its own howl as the hall snaps in half, coughing blood and chandeliers into a sky strangled in pewter rot. Mirrors vomit oceans of faces. Yours, theirs, no one's. Splintered into psalms lacquered with gold scabs. Historians, mildew dogs slobbering in smug gloss, will fatten this moment in ink. Symbolic rupture, likely allegorical. They'll never taste the marrow sizzling under your ribs, nor feel eternity vomiting centuries into your breath like plague into milk. Behind you, shadows coil like serpents sugared in soot. Ahead yawns nothing, a throat slick with night, begging for your spine. And you dive. Nothing. A cathedral of hush ulcered in ink. Ribs carved from moons strangled in soot. Candles hang like hanged men weeping wax psalms into a sea slick with shadows. You sprawl in its throat, barefoot, blood sluicing your calves, lips lacquered in vowels gutted to bone. Above, stars convulse in sockets fattened on frost, coughing galaxies like teeth scalded in dusk. Below, the floor splits open, belching names in vermilion screams. Muse, Phantom, Fever, Lysandra. Each syllable spasms into ash before clawing your skin. And then it comes. The hush. Slow, soft, holy as arsenic stirred in milk. It crawls up your throat, chews your marrow, and suckles your lungs till they bleed Strauss. You thrash, gagging psalms scalded in ink. But the hush fattens, thick as velvet boiled in venom, and strangles sound from the century. Historians will spit smug footnotes into their tomes. The muse vanished under symbolic silence. They'll never feel hush slit its gums and drink their ribs to marrow like wine. Behind you, mirrors cough shards like frozen prayers. Ahead, a stair yawns into light sugared in frost. A dawn that stinks of birth and rot in equal hymns. And barefoot, bones blistered in dusk, you climb. The stair drips into light like marrow sluicing from a saint's cracked ribs. Dawn glares through archways strangled in frost, its fingers lacquered in pewter, claws sugared in poison gold. Bells convulse above, vomiting hymns that stink of arsenic and lilies left to rot in milk. You crawl through this birth wound of day, barefoot, breath strangled in hush, skirts ulcered with vermilion psalms. The air bites, sharp as gin sluiced on bone, scalding vowels from your marrow till your tongue weeps ink. And then you see them, a conclave of masks writhing in the cloister, their eyes fat with envy and rot. Priests lacquered in soot, poets swollen with plague, courtesans sugared in sin. They kneel before a throne ribbed in ivory scabs, its belly belching silk fattened on dusk. Name, they hiss, Bleed us your name. Historians, mildew saints, will choke this moment into gloss varnished in lies. Ceremony of coronation, allegorical figure. They'll never taste the venom slicking your ribs as dawn gnaws centuries into bone dust. Behind you, shadows convulse with whispers gutted in Strauss. Ahead, the throne yawns like a wound choking on psalms, and the crown glares, dripping frost and blood into your pulse. They drag you by the wrists, gloves vomiting silk scars down your veins, toward the throne slick with him wrought. The crown squats on its ribbed cushion, fangs carved from gold ulcered in centuries, its gums dripping pearls like teeth spat from saints. You kneel, or the silence kneels you, spine blistered in dusk, lips slick with vowels gagged in milk. The priest croaks psalms fattened on soot, choking vowels through teeth ulcered in ash. By this frost, by this fire, by this hush gorged in bone be named. And the crown strangles your skull, vomiting hymns into your marrow like knives lacquered in velvet. From its ribs spasms a name, scarlet, scalded, sugared in arsenic. Lysandra, not yours, never yours, but it chews your tongue raw till it spits blood psalms into dawn. Historians will drool smug ink across their vellum carcasses. The coronation of Lysandra, phantom muse of empire. They'll never hear the hush blistering your lungs, nor taste the silk coughing poison hymns into your veins. Behind you, bells convulse into death rattles lacquered in gold. Ahead yawns a door vomiting centuries into a throat fattened on bone dust. And barefoot, crowned in frost and lies, you stagger toward its howl. The door vomits you into a hall swollen with rot. Walls lacquered in gilt convulse under the weight of chandeliers bleeding halos like pus from saints. Mirrors bloom across the ribs, ulcered with cracks fattened on ink. Each coughing face is flayed to bone. Yours, theirs, no one's, splintered into psalms. And then the empire dies. It doesn't collapse. It gnaws its own spine, chewing dusk into bone dust while Strauss shrieks through its lungs. Columns throttle themselves to rubble. Frescoes claw their own ribs raw. Glass howls vowels blistered in blood. The throne spasms, vomiting crowns that rot into serpents sugared in frost. Priests claw their eyes out with psalms. Poets drown in ink geysers sluicing from their tongues. Courtesans flay their own shadows, sewing lace into skin scalded in vermilion dusk. And you, crown strangling your skull, lips gagged on hush, ribs chewing Strauss till marrow shrieks in vermilion hymns. Historians will varnish this cataclysm in smug italics. Symbolic ruin, decadence devouring its marrow. They'll never taste the bone dust boiling in your throat tonight. Behind you, dawn curdles into milk sugared in arsenic. Ahead yawns a chasm gnawing centuries to gristle, its gums slick with gold scabs and hymns fattened on rot. And you dive. The chasm gulps you like a psalm flayed from a saint's ribs. Air convulses into a storm gagged in bone. Skulls ricocheting through soot, femurs splitting hymns across black milk skies. Wind chews your skirts into ribbons slick with dusk, flaying your ankles till marrow spills ink on air. Galaxies froth overhead like ulcers, coughing stars fat with plague. Time shrieks from fissures splitting heaven's gums, spitting centuries into your pulse like knives sugared in Strauss. You spin through the bone storm, a marionette lacquered in frost, crowned in venom hymns. Vowels ulcer in your lungs, boiling into names that claw their gums bloody. Lysandra, Cleo, no one. Each syllable bursts into shards scalded in psalms, carving wounds across the cosmos. Historians, mildew carrion bloated on smug gloss, will scrawl this apocalypse in ink curdled with metaphor, a dream fever, allegorical collapse. They'll never hear bones grinding symphonies into your breath, nor taste hush foaming down your ribs like arsenic stirred in milk. And then the hush comes, slow, thick, holy as death kissed in silk. It eats the wind, the hymns, the bone psalms, and finally, it chews your name down to marrow dust. Behind you, galaxies drown in Strauss. Ahead yawns nothing. Not black, not gold, just hush. And you drift into its throat like a vowel scalded in frost. Silence fattens until it ripples, and from its marrow spills a masquerade. Slick, soft, sugared in frost. Masks bloom across the dark like lilies strangled in soot, their eyes lacquered in gold scars. Shadows waltz in circles ulcered by eternity, Strauss bleeding from their spines like milk scalded in arsenic. You drift barefoot through this hush, crown gnawing your skull to gristle, lips gagged on psalms flayed into ribbons. Faces leer through masks foaming with vermilion rot, their mouths chewing names until vowels burst into dust. One glides close, a phantom ribbed in silk, its voice sweet as venom suckled from a saint's thigh. Say it, spit the syllables, and I'll stitch you to time's tongue. You part your lips. Silence slithers out like ink sluiced on frost. The phantom laughs, teeth vomiting Strauss into the hush, and dissolves into psalms slick with bone dust. Historians will wheeze this moment into gloss gagged in italics. Visionary pageant. Likely delirium. They'll never feel masks flaying vowels from your marrow tonight. Behind you, eternity drools him scalded in soot. Ahead yawns a stair carved from black milk, its ribs dripping frost, leading to the final hush. And barefoot, shadow blistered in dusk, you climb. The stair convulses into nothing, a throat gagged in white fire. You sprawl at its gums, breath-clawing psalms that die in your teeth like worms lacquered in milk. Around you, stars ulcer into wounds scalded in frost, coughing halos slick with plague. And then you hear it, the hush, soft, slow, holy as death strangled in silk. It crawls up your ribs, gnaws your lungs raw, and kisses your pulse till it purrs Strauss in vermilion whispers. Your crown splits into shards scabbed in gold. Your name, what was left of it, rots into syllables boiling in ink. And your body dissolves into hush fattened on centuries, slithering into the marrow of mirrors that will cough your ghost for empires unborn. Historians will pimp this ruin into metaphors sugared in smugness. The muse dissolves in allegory. They'll never choke on the milk of silence licking your bones tonight. And then nothing. No black, no gold. Just hush yawning wider than God's lungs, crooning you down into its velvet ribs. You drift. You fold. You vanish. Forever a psalm throttled in dusk.